Welcome to a terrifying yet unsurprising look at the state of the American dream, or should we say the American nightmare, because owning a home in this country is starting to feel like something out of a horror movie. We're in the midst of a housing bubble of epic, almost comical proportions. Ordinary, hardworking Americans are getting absolutely steamrolled trying to keep up with rent and mortgages, leading to more financial stress than a Wall Street executive trying to explain NFTs to their grandkids. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. This is about real families and real communities facing the very real prospect of losing their homes. We're diving headfirst into the abyss of 35 jaw-dropping facts about the new housing crisis. Remember the 2008 housing crisis? Fasten your seatbelts because we're already exceeding those peak prices. The average sales price of a new home hit $453,700 last month. Now, you might be tempted to blame this whole mess on the pandemic, and while COVID certainly hasn't helped, let's not let it off the hook that easily. Between 2012 and 2019, prices shot up over 50%. Let's talk about the Case-Shiller Home Price Index, which showed a 19.7% jump between 2020 and 2021. That's not a price increase, that's a hostage situation where the hostage taker is also charging you a convenience fee for the emotional distress. Remember when lumber was just, wood? Those were simpler times. These days, thanks to supply chain issues, lumber prices have gone through the roof, adding an extra $26,430 to the price of a new home. So, you want to buy a house? Well, good luck finding one. The inventory of available homes is drier than a popcorn fart. Zillow says the supply of new homes for sale is at a measly 6.3 months, and existing homes are even worse at 1.7 months. Remember hungry hippos? Well, wealthy investors are basically doing that right now with houses gobbling up entire neighborhoods. This feeding frenzy caused the national inventory of homes to plummet by 39.6% in 2021. Here's a fun fact that's not fun at all. America is short 3.8 million affordable homes. Millions of families are stuck in a game of housing musical chairs where there are never enough chairs. Remember when houses used to sit on the market for months? Pepperidge Farm remembers. These days, the typical home is gone in 47 days, which is 32 days less than before the pandemic. Want to buy a house for under $300,000? Well, in 2022, only 1 in 10 homes sold for that price. Last year, it was 3 in 10. Home sales have dipped for 2 months straight. This isn't because prices are becoming more reasonable, it's because people are finally realizing they can't afford this nonsense anymore. Over 60% of American households are currently lugging around that burden like a sack of potatoes filled with student loan debt and medical bills. The average middle-class homeowner is now forking over a whopping 34.8% of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. In at least 20 major U.S. cities, middle-class families can kiss the dream of homeownership goodbye. It's like a nationwide game of Monopoly where all the good properties are owned by corporations and you're stuck with Baltic Avenue. The median household income in the U.S. is $52,000. The median asking price for a home is $392,000. Home prices have skyrocketed a mind-boggling 284% since 2000 in the biggest housing bubble in American history. In San Diego, prices have ballooned 27% in a year. Seattle's up 24.7%. Phoenix takes the cake with a staggering 32.6% increase. Remember when mortgage rates were a measly 3.2% at the end of 2021? Well, those days are gone. Rates are now knocking on the door of 5%, and the Federal Reserve plans to hike them at least 5 more times this year. Wolf Richter of wolfstreet.com says that as mortgage rates rise, more buyers are getting priced out, leading to a potential crash. It's like watching a game of Jenga where everyone knows the tower is about to collapse, but they keep pulling out blocks anyway. 28% of potential buyers who qualified for a 3% mortgage rate can no longer afford a home with a 4.7% rate. As more and more Americans are priced out of the market, sales of single-family homes have taken a nosedive, dropping 7% in March alone. Condo sales are even worse, plummeting 9.5%. Think you're safe from the housing madness because you rent? Think again. Rents are skyrocketing faster than a SpaceX rocket, with a nationwide spike of 17% over the past year. Let's take a trip to Miami, where rent has increased a jaw-dropping 32% year over year. And don't even get me started on Austin, where rent has shot up 40% in the past 12 months. Redfin says the average rent in the U.S. is now a whopping $1,877 per month. That's the highest increase since 2014. While renter incomes have inched up a measly 0.5%, rental prices have soared 13% when adjusted for inflation. It's like trying to outrun a cheetah on a treadmill. You're just going nowhere fast. The Roosevelt Institute found that half of all renters in the United States, a staggering 20.4 million households, are struggling under the weight of their rent payments. The Pew Research Center reports that nearly a quarter of all renters, 23% to be exact, are shelling out a whopping 50% or more of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. It's like trying to survive on a diet of ramen noodles and hope. It's not sustainable. The survey of consumer finances found that a whopping 61% of American renters are low-wage workers. The majority of people who are struggling to afford rent are the very people who are already struggling to make ends meet. The government threw $2.3 trillion in rental assistance last year, but thanks to bureaucratic hurdles, most households couldn't even access the funds. As a result, a staggering 8 million Americans are still at least 1 month behind on their rent. America's collective rent debt is a staggering $21.3 billion. That's an average of $3,700 per renter. The mortgage delinquency rate is now just 1% lower than it was back during the subprime mortgage crisis, sitting at a precarious 8.22%. It's like we're watching a sequel to a horror movie we never wanted to see again. In February 2022, lenders initiated foreclosure proceedings on 16,545 homes. That's a 40% jump from January and a whopping 176% increase from a year ago. Martini Full Service estimates that at least 750,000 Americans are at risk of losing their homes this year. It's like a nationwide game of musical chairs where they keep removing chairs and no one is safe. Remember the CDC's eviction moratorium that was supposed to protect renters during the pandemic? Well, Bloomberg reports that between June 2020 and July 2021, at least 49,000 renters were evicted anyway. It's like having a life preserver thrown to you while you're drowning, only to find out it's filled with lead. Zillow predicts that home prices will surge another 22% by August 2022 before crashing 16.4% by December. A Pew Research Center survey found that 49% of Americans believe affordable housing is a major problem in their communities. Almost half of the country is worried about finding a place to live that doesn't break the bank. The American dream deferred, denied, and on life support. We all grew up with that heartwarming image of achieving the American dream, a good job, a loving family, and a place to call your own. But for millions of Americans, that dream is fading faster than a cheap pair of jeans. The brutal reality is that in this economy where wages are stagnant and the cost of living is skyrocketing, owning a home has become a luxury few can afford. The younger generations, saddled with student loan debt and facing a bleak job market, are being priced out of the very future they were promised. The American dream is on life support, and unless we act now, we're in danger of losing it forever.